Okay, so this is going to be the first part of the tutorial. We'll probably break it into about 4 different ones. First one, we're just going to cover the design, so doing the Photoshop and doing it in a way that we'll be able to export the images appropriately. So go ahead and start Photoshop. You guys may be using a different version of Photoshop. I'm using Photoshop CC here, so if you're using the Adobe Creative Cloud, this is the one that you'll have. So start Photoshop open. I've already grabbed a couple images that I'm going to use, and I'm just going to organize everything on my desktop. It's going to keep everything a little simpler. So I'm going to create a folder, and I'm going to call it PSDs. And that's where I'm going to put my Photoshop files. So I'm going to go ahead and got Photoshop open. Let me move it over to this screen. Okay, we need to create a document, a new document to start with, and I believe it needs to be at least 960 pixels wide. I'm actually going to make it, I'll make it 960 pixels wide for now. And then tall at least 800. So we're going to go 960 by 800. Alright, let me do that again. So 960 by 800. Make sure your resolution's at 72 RGB. You should be good to go as long as you match these items. I can name it later, so I'm not going to worry about that. Alright, so here's my initial blank website, and just got the white background right now. So what I'm going to do is, similar to those wireframes that we created in class, I'm going to create something like that. Let me go ahead and pull up the specifications that I put in the homework. Okay, so I said 960 pixels wide, 800 pixels tall, at least those. So we're going to need a background picture. I said you to do it of yourself, but you can do it as something else, like I'm going to do it on the animal, the wombat, sort of thing. So if you want to do something else, that's fine, as long as you keep the layout pretty much the same, so that when we go to coding, it'll be easier for you to do. Okay, so I've already gotten these images right here. I'm going to drop them in my PSDs so that they're stored here. I'm going to go ahead and drag my background image in. I could even name it that. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to drag this into Photoshop. And I'm going to drag it up. The reason it's so small is because it is at a different DPI. So I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to go to Image Size. And see, it says 300 DPI. Well, I only need it 72, but I need to keep it the same width and height. Now I'll close that, save it, get this little dialog. There we go. So now you see it takes up more of the space like it should. That's just because it was a higher resolution sort of image. Not so much resolution, but DPI. Okay, so this is kind of the background, and I'm going to do hide that layer for a moment. Now, websites typically fall within 960 pixels wide. That's changing as websites get better and browsers are better and computers and everything changes, but typically it was 960 pixels wide, so you needed to keep it within that. So we're going to use that as a general guideline, but we don't need to keep it all the way within that. So I'm going to, as you see, I dragged a guide to each side, so now we have those guides for 960. Then I'm going to go up to Image, Canvas Size. Image, Canvas Size. I'm going to make it wider. I'm going to make it about 1200. And you see it's going to add on the extra thing. Now it's added on black because that's what my background color is. So I'm going to grab white and hit OK. And then I'm going to grab my paint bucket over here, and on my background, make sure that's selected, I'm going to paint white. So now we've got that. So I've got these margins. I can turn those on and off by doing View. I always use shortcuts. Show guides, but I use your shortcut Command or Control if you're on a PC, semicolon. So That's where I should probably keep most of my stuff within, but definitely not the background image. The background image can take up more space. So, actually, let's find out how big my background image is. It is, and these are percentages, I'm going to convert them to pixels just by right-clicking. Oh, that's a weird size. Well, that's alright. Alright, so we've got the background image there. And I'll probably need to play around with that a little bit more. But right now we're going to grab my wombat picture. And this is going to be my main photo. Or not my little avatar. So what I'm also going to do is create a circle, because I like circles. Or, well, circles are alright. And I'm going to draw a circle here. And I'm going to put that photo in that circle. But to do that, notice I've got my circle tool. I drew that, and it's called an ellipsis over here. And then we've got my image. I'm going to drag the image on top of that order in that stack. And then I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and hover between those two layers. And see how it changes from a hand to that? When it does that, I can click. And now that image is within that circle. Now if I want to undo that, I could just click there and it pops back out. See how that works? Alright, so I'm going to transform this. So you can do that by selecting this image and then doing Edit, Free Transform. I just use Command T. So now I'm going to bring that down, get his face kind of in there. Okay, there he is. And so we've got that and that. And let's get let's see, what else did I said? We need, put a name. We'll give him a name. You can't see what I'm typing because when I was typing, I have it over here within that. Well, I don't want that, so I'm going to drag it out. And it's still actually embedded inside that circle, so I'm going to hold down Option and click in between it. Now you can see it, Wallace Wombat. I'm going to pick a normal font, Helvetica. That way we can use when we go to coding. If you pick a really weird font, you'll probably have to turn it into an image because other people won't have that font on their computer. So here we go. I've got that as his name. I've got an image. I want to make that bigger, so we're going to go 48. Wallace Wombat. Nah, we don't want Wallace. We want Wombatish. Okay. So we've got a picture, got a title, and I said we need a cool tagline phrase. So we need to put something else here. Boy, what am I gonna put here? Wombats are cool. Period. All right, now this is supposed to be subtext, so it needs to be smaller than the main text. So, like visual hierarchy, as we've discussed, you've got your main title, and then you got a subtitle. So you got that visual hierarchy. Actually, I need to change something here because settings from what I was doing previous, I've got my tracking on my text set to 100, and I don't want that. I want it tighter. I want it at 0. Okay, so now I've got my kind of introductory section. I need to get my short paragraph and maybe a title for that paragraph. So let's do that one. Let's make the paragraph. I'm dragging with my text box. I'm dragging it about the width of that, and I'm just going to put lorem ipsum in there. So I'm going to go to type, paste lorem ipsum, just random stuff. Whoa, that's way too big. I need to bring that down to size 16. Notice how my font is really spaced out. That's because under my type, I've got my line height, or maybe it's called leading sometimes. I'm going to set that to auto. That looks a little bit more normal, although a little bit tighter than I want. So I'm going to boost it up to 24. Gives it a little bit more breathing room. And I don't want it bold, I want it regular. Bold's more for titles and stuff like that. And you can see it's hard to read right now with that background, but that's okay. We'll take care of that later. Okay, so I've got that, I've got this, and I've got a paragraph, but we're going to give it a title. We're going to give it a title, Why Wombats Are So Cool. Now as a title, we want that to be a little bit bigger and a little bit bolder. I like 24. Okay, so I've got most of the main things that I'm supposed to have. My title, my subtitle, my picture, my description. Now I need to create a button. I'm going to get rid of some of this text. There we go. Now we need to create a button because we're going to link this out to somewhere else. So I'm going to grab a rounded rectangle. I'm going to drag and draw a button. And it draws it white because that's what my foreground color is. I'm going to sample a color out here from the blue. And not really feeling that. Let's double click on there again to sample a different color. Let's see. I'm having trouble picking. We'll just go with the gray button for now. We can change this later. And then the button needs to say, check it out. And it's on a button, so we're going to make it a little bolder. We're going to make it a little bit bigger. A little bit big. And we're going to change its color to be more contrast. Okay. Okay. I'm going to select all, and then I've got these, my text and my rectangle selected, so I'm going to center them in the page. Now notice how to check it out got scooted over. I just deselected everything. Once you select everything, you can do select all and you can do deselect from the select menu. Now I'm going to grab check it out, and I'm going to change this right here. I'm going to select my type tool and change this to centered. Now it's centered. Okay. So we've got the basic idea for this website, but it needs a little bit of work. So we're going to take this background, and it's just way too bright. So we're going to use a gradient map. I'm a fan of gradient maps. We're going to put that oh, there we are. Whoa, that's an intense difference. I really like this orange-purple one. It works pretty well. Now that's a little crazy looking. We're not going to do it as crazy as that. But I'm going to go ahead and Option Alt click here, so it applies just to this. Then I'm going to reduce the opacity of that layer a little bit so that it has that rustic-iness to it, but it doesn't look quite as stark as that. But it still has some of that color to it. Okay. Now this picture needs a little touch up, so I'm going to grab the ellipsis that is around it, that it's inside. I'm going to apply effect to it. I'm going to go to stroke, And I'm going to give it, well, it's a black stroke right now, but I'm going to give it a white stroke. It's a little thin. I want to beef that up to about 5 or 6. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that's a little better. I'm actually going to, what else should I do to this? I'm going to do an inner shadow. I'm going to change this to 90 degrees. And I may be moving too fast for some of this, and that's the beauty of the video. You can stop it, go back, and check it out again. Alright, there we go. I did a drop shadow to it also. Now, let's see, I feel that wombat picture could use a gradient map also, or something, because it's just so different. Oh, it applied to everything, so that's when I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and click inside there, so now it applies just to that picture. We don't want it to look like that. So, let's try doing the same one, or maybe this one. Now that looks ridiculous, but if I change the opacity, it looks a whole lot better. But it gets a little bit of that tint. But I don't really like that as well. Yeah, I could do that, could do that. I kind of like that one. Kind of ridiculous, but kind of fun. That looks really ridiculous. Okay, well, that's kind of fun. So let's see, what else should I do to that photo? That actually, white stroke looks a little stark now, so let's go toy with that. We could make it more gray. That's not working. Maybe if we sample the color from his nose. It's not really working for me either. What if I sample this blue? Nope, not happening. If I go dark, maybe I'll just go back to this almost white. Okay, so I'm just going to go with a very, very light gray. So there we go. We've got a picture with that. We've got the background. We've got a title. I'm going to make this bigger. 64. 32. Whoa, change fonts on me there. Okay, I'm going to go to View and go to Screen Mode, Full Screen. Oh, cancel. Never mind. Go to View, Screen Mode, that one. Now I can hold down Spacebar, and I get this hand when I do that. Now I can drag it around and move it like that. That way it just gives me a little more flexibility. I'm going to hide that panel. Alright, now this text is still really hard to see. So I could do a couple different things. I could see if you, whoa, that doesn't fix that problem. Not with a white background. I could drop the opacity of this so that you could see it more, and if I used a darker font, see how that looks. And it still is quite a battle. What might be kind of cool is if I got more blue up closer so that the text is on top of the blue. Let's go to bring this back to 100. But I don't know that I have enough space for that. Ooh, I kind of like that though. So if I just put the image down here, bring this up here, and I could do something different up here. Let's try that. So I'm going to use my rectangle tool, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to color that. I'm going to send that to its back. So I'm going to drag it down here so it's behind the text. And that looks like a terrible color choice. Terrible color choice. So let's give this some thought. Scratch that, we're not doing that. Okay. Well, what we could do is we could put this all in a box. So let's try that real quick. Do a rounded rectangle. And create, whoa, there we go. That works, but it's really ugly. So how could we get this to work? We could make it black and let it kind of sit with that opacity and change these back to white. So that kind of works. It's not a very beautiful website, but it would work. So let's grab this rectangle, select all, center. And we can see how this is a lot of space here and not that much space here. Let's fix that. So let's go grab our wombat, ellipsis, and gradient map and drag it over there. Grab our text, wombatish, and because wombats are cool, drag it over here. That looks a little better. Now, why wombats are so cool. Okay. Let's see, should we do something different with this button? Or is it still going to give me problems? That purple almost worked. Nope. Let's just go back to that gray, so cancel. Okay, so this is very simple, very basic, but we have a background picture. We've got a title, subtitle, picture, a paragraph of text, and a button. And you could change the text right here, or we can do that in code later. So we'll leave it like this for now. So we've got our button and all of that thing, right? All of that, what we need right now. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Probably should have done that earlier. I'm just going to name it home page. And I'm going to save it under my desktop, under PSDs. Okay, so there we go. There's the first page. So the next stage is going to be cutting these images up and putting, the next stage is going to be exporting these images. So we'll do that in a separate video. Take care.